Hello and welcome to the State Historic Preservation Office Program Application Review. This webinar today will cover how State Historic Preservation Offices need to submit their annual applications for their Historic Preservation Fund grants. My name is Megan Brown. I'm Chief of the State Tribal Local Plans and Grants Division in the National Park Service. And myself and Seth Tinkham from our office will be presenting to you today on how to do your application. One of the keys to managing your annual HPF grant from the Park Service is knowing who your Park Service grant management specialist is. And you can see this map defines who our grant managers are. You're going to be working with either myself, Madeline Kahn, Seth Tinkham, or Marla Collum in our office. So being familiar with them and how to get in touch with them is an important factor if you need help along the way. Getting ready for doing the application is an important piece. So we've kind of provided you with a pre-application checklist here. So making sure that we've received your end of year report and you've answered any questions that we've proposed to you about it. Don't worry about if the report has been completely approved yet. You can go ahead and submit your application, but before we're able to award funding, your end of year report will have to be completely approved. Do you have an approved state plan? David Banks in our office handles the state plan program. If you don't, please request an extension. You don't want your state plan to lapse. That's a key component to making funding available to you. Also knowing if your audit status is current. If you haven't filed your single audit or your state has a delay on that, please let us know because that may be something that affects the award of your grant. Keeping your sam.gov registration current is very important. Making sure you're registered in grants.gov, that you haven't let that registration lapse because that's how you're going to apply for your grant. It's always important to keep your ASAP account active because that is how you actually draw down your funding. And then we will be looking to make sure your current signature authority is on file so that we have authority from the governor for your state historic preservation officer, and then authorities for your deputies from your state historic preservation officer. So those letters, if they're not up to date, the SHPO designation from the governor should be addressed to our associate director, and then delegation of signature authority to deputies can be addressed to myself, the chief at Steel Pig. So the place to submit a grant application is still grants.gov. Even though we've shifted into Grant Solutions as our financial management software, you're not going to apply through Grant Solutions. So it's important to keep that familiarity with grants.gov. It will continue to be what we use. And you can see here a list of the forms that will be required. So it's the entire 424 series. Even if you're not doing construction, we encourage you to go ahead and submit that 424C if it says 0 and the 424D in case for some reason you make a change during the course of the grant and decide you might need to do a construction project. Then you will have those assurances complete. Also, for all grants over $100,000, which yours are, we need an SFLLL, which is disclosure of lobbying activities. We doubt that many of you are participating in lobbying activities, so please just marking those with not applicable will be sufficient to cover that. In addition, you're going to be attaching to grants.gov the organizational chart and your staff summaries, the certification for qualified staff and review board, and then an indirect cost rate agreement if you are applying indirect cost rates to your grant application. A reminder, just don't submit through Grant Solutions, and if you're having issues with grants.gov, they have a very good helpline, and here's the phone number. That is kind of the piece in the puzzle that we can't help with as much, so definitely get in touch with them directly. The second piece of your application will be in the HPF Online, and what we're looking for is for you to put projections into the Cumulative Products table, as well as the Project Activity Database. So in the Cumulative Products table, we're looking to see what you plan to accomplish in all of the program areas, and those are the things like National Register, Tax Incentive, certified local government, etc. Those program areas that are outlined in the National Historic Preservation Act. In the project activity database, we're going to be looking for the projects that you anticipate to take on. We realize that at the point you're applying for funding, you may not know what all your subgrant projects are at that time. So we at least want to see that your in-house projects are filled out, and we would expect to see an in-house project in each program area. So in the cumulative products table, please enter all the projections into the tables except for areas that are assigned to the Park Service, and that's pretty clear. Make sure the projection numbers are consistent to what you're proposing to do in your project. So if you're undertaking a large survey project, we would expect to see that your projection numbers may be going up from last year. When planning is selected as the primary program area, there needs to be a corresponding entry in the cumulative products table. So if you are looking for doing a state plan in your project activity database, then we want to see that entered in the cumulative products table as well, please. In the project activity database, each project that you enter needs to support an objective of your state plan. And if you have questions about how to enter those or how to tag those, David Banks is a great resource in our office. Each program area needs to be represented specifically in your in-house activities. Please make sure each project has a descriptive title and it's clear what the project will involve. You don't have a lot of text, but it needs to be clear and decisive. Each project needs to be measurable, tangible, and eligible, and making sure that your tasks are in the proper program area. So where we see confusion sometimes is maybe you have a certified local government subgrant you're giving out, and you're tempted to tag that for the certified local government program area. Actually, if you're funding a National Register nomination with that CLG grant, you need to be tagging National Register as the primary program area. So just keep that in mind. National Historic Landmark projects do require additional reporting and submissions, and you can now do that through the HPF online, but they do trigger that kind of advanced warning and advanced approval. For those NHLs, let's talk a little bit more about that in detail. The submission requirements for those are outlined in the HPF online, so if you're following along with that, you should be in good shape. We do want to see a site plan so we know the area of effect that we're looking at, plans and specifications for the project if you have those, photographs, etc. So basically we're doing a more intense review because it is an NHL, and that's part of our requirements under Section 110. We will also be consulting with the regional office on the NHL review. So if it is a project you've been working on with the region and perhaps they have provided a review and approval, let us know that, because that can probably take the place of our review and speed things along. We do want to see all of this information at least 20 days before the work begins. So let's go over the program areas in the HPF online that we're expecting you to see activity in each one. The first one is planning, and for those of you who've been doing this for a while, you might remember this used to be optional. It is no longer optional, so please fill out something under planning. Planning can be a wide variety of things, and it is a text entry box, so it's not numbers that we're expecting to see. But your state plan is one thing that I think you can always enter. Either you're preparing it, reviewing it, or you're following it. So that's a great thing to enter. Also, you probably are doing some planning work with your local government. So including that in your planning area would be a good idea. So just some ideas of what you could put under there. The connection between what you're putting in the PADB and the cumulative products table is important. So all of the reporting that you do kind of has relationships to each other. And so if we see that in the in-house that you will provide outreach to underserved communities as part of your state plan effort, then tagging that to a project about doing an open house session in Latino and African American communities is key, right? So we want to see that connection. Same for like a historic district. If you're developing an overlay ordinance, then you can show us how those are actually taking place and they're showing up in the cumulative products table. Under the survey program areas, this is pretty straightforward. We do want to see all the survey work that you're doing, so telling us what you're doing in-house for surveys, but also if you're going to be involved in a large Section 106 review or something like that that's going to require surveys. That's important. You'll see in the cumulative products table that we have started asking another question under survey, and that is the number of resources determined eligible for the National Register from surveys. And the intent of this is we've been asking for the number of acres of buildings surveyed for a long time, but that doesn't really tell us very much. So knowing the number of resources you've determined eligible is a much more helpful number. We are going to require that from 2021 forward. So make sure that you're doing that entry in that section. And if you have questions, let your grant manager know. National Register program area includes the preparation, coordination, and review of National Register. This is your review board activities. Maybe you're contacting your CLGs about your National Register projects, etc. And then moving on to development, which is kind of the word we use to say we're actually doing a physical preservation project. So we're doing physical work to a National Register listed or National Historic Landmark. Also might include pre-development planning, so engineering reports, historic structures reports, those types of things. Any archaeology that you're doing that may be protecting, stabilizing, doing actual work to an archaeological site would also fall under development. And reminder that any kind of development projects will also trigger NEPA, and the NEPA paperwork worksheet needs to be completed, and that also takes place within the HPF online. So just keep that in mind. Review and compliance is your Section 106 activities, as well as some other types of activities, 110 and some other reviews, and NEPA. So keeping in mind what you're doing in those areas is important, and providing us documentation of what activities you're undertaking. Certified local governments is the last of the program areas, and this program area is really about the organization of your CLG program. So it's you helping the CLGs, processing CLG applications and amendments, the evaluation of CLGs, and overseeing the subgrants is not quite the same. So those subgrants are particular projects that your office is undertaking. But the program area for certified local governments really talks about the running of the program itself, and ensuring that the CLG program stays active. If you don't have a CLG program, it's not required for most of our territories in DC, then this is not something we would expect you to fill out anything under. So at this stage, I'm going to turn the rest of the presentation over to my colleague, Seth Tinkham. Seth?
Thank you, Megan. So Megan has just described a lot of the cultural resource management or historic preservation focused parts of the application, and really those places where you outline the work that you're going to be doing. I'm going to shift our focus a little bit more to the mechanics of applying and some of the other compliance issues to keep in mind while you're filling out the application and throughout the duration of your grant agreement. But the focus of these remaining few slides will not actually be on managing the grant. We're still staying within the realm of the application, with one exception, and that's this slide right here. So FFATA is the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act. And FFATA requires reporting, additional enhanced reporting on certain actions under your grant with us. For the purposes of FFATA, you're considered what's called a prime awardee because you have the direct relationship with the federal government through your grant agreement. FFATA requires you to report on subawardees, subgrants, and the way that you do that is through a system called FSRS. So FSRS is the system where you report on higher dollar subgrants because of the requirements of FFATA. Something to keep in mind is that not every subgrant needs to be reported in FSRS. Only those subgrants that are greater than or equal to $25,000 need to be reported on, and you have a certain time limit on which to make that initial report. So no later than the month following the month in which the subgrant agreement is signed, you need to make sure to update FSRS with the requested information. There have been some recent updates to 2 CFR 200 that indicate that that $25,000 threshold will be raised to $30,000, but we have not received any guidance on that yet. However, we anticipate that coming at some point. To turn now back to grants.gov, you're going to be filling out a variety of forms there. And the first one that you're going to be filling out is the SF-424, which is the general application for federal assistance. Please make sure that you're as accurate as possible when you fill this form out, because a lot of this information will be used to create your grant agreement and other important documents. If the SF-424 is the general application for federal financial assistance, the SF-424A is really the key budget document. Although it is titled non-construction budget, it will include your construction costs. So to say that again, even though this is titled the non-construction budget, it will include your development costs. And we'll get to where those are recorded later, but the title sometimes throws people off. So what we're looking at right now is the first page of the SF-424A. And this is the page where you are going to enter the amount of federal dollars for which you are applying, as well as the match that you intend to supply. A lot of the information on this initial page will be pre-populated from other data that you've input throughout grants.gov. But something just to double check is to make sure that 15904 is the Catalog of Federal Domestic Assistance, or CFDA number, also called the assistance listing now, is in column B. The key fields here are columns E and F, where you will be providing us with the federal and non-federal, or grant and matching amount for which you are applying. As a reminder, there's a 60-40 ratio of federal to non-federal funding that is required as part of this award. Something to keep in mind is that the total, on this first page needs to match the total here that is now visible on the second page. So right now we're on the second page of the SF-424A. This page is technically labeled as page 1A, but it's helpful to think of it as the second page. And this is the budget breakdown where you're telling us how you're going to be spending the money. Section B, this budget categories page, is both your federal share and your non-federal share. So it includes all of your funding, and it is broken down into 3 broad categories. The categories that we have assigned are administrative costs, which go in the first column, your kind of in-house SHPO program costs, what it costs you to do the things we ask you to do in column 2, and then column 3 is subgrants and contracts. So those are the 3 ways that you're going to be breaking down the funding, and you're going to be breaking it into what are referred to as object class categories. They're along the left-hand side. So those are the rows that are on the left-hand side of the screen right now. And then, of course, you're also going to add program income if that is something that you charge. So to go into a little bit more detail here about the columns, right? So for right now, we're only focusing on those 3 columns. The administrative costs that go in column 1 are those costs associated with administrative activities. And if you have any questions about what those include, I would encourage you to reference your past few years grant agreement, where we have been attaching a memo from Megan Brown that has refined the definition of what administrative costs are. So the definition that is in the manual is not inaccurate, but we've made it more precise and clearer through the addition of some subsequent memos. Something to keep in mind is that the total sum of administrative and indirect costs, regardless of where those come from, whether that's a prime awardee like the SHPO, subgrants or contracts, all of those administrative and indirect costs cannot exceed 25% of the total budget. And so that's just a good check to keep in mind as you're completing not only column 1, but as you're assigning indirect costs throughout the rest of your budget. Operating costs, as I said before, those are going to be recorded in column 2, and those relate to your in-house activities and other things that you do to run your office, frankly, right? And those can occur in any of the program areas, I would say, with the exception of administration. Column 3 is going to be where you record your subgrants and contracts. A key thing to keep in mind here is that you may have subgrants that are made to entities that are not certified local governments. Same thing with a contract too. But at a minimum, we need to see here in column 3, row H, other, that is where you record the federal and non-federal share of your grant that you are passing through to your CLGs. So that specific cell, again, section B, column 3, row H, is a key check for us that we use to verify the full 10% CLG pass through. However, in this section B, you're providing us, again, both the federal and non-federal share that you are passing through to CLGs. So right now, we've left the 3 columns, and we're going to take a detailed look at the object class categories. And it might be helpful to think of those, again, as the rows along the left-hand side of section B, of the table in section B on the 424A. There are a variety of budget categories that get recorded in the budget, and those include what you can see here. So personnel, consultant and contractors, equipment, a reminder for equipment that if you intend to purchase equipment, please make sure that you identify that in your application so that we can approve the purchase of that equipment at the same time as we are approving your application. And if you do purchase equipment, please make sure to submit annually the appropriate SF428 form, which basically reports to us on the status and condition of that property. We also want to know what supplies and other costs you're going to be expending your grant and matching share on. And do just make sure to explain what the other costs mean somewhere within the application so that we can approve that as well. You will also need to list your indirect costs. And if you have an indirect cost rate agreement, please make sure to remember to attach that to your application. If you've elected to use the 10% de minimis rate, please just let us know that. And remember to be consistent in your reporting, particularly if your indirect cost rate changes throughout the life of the grant agreement. We'll need to receive a revised indirect cost rate agreement so that we have the most current one on file. The table also records program income. And if you are going to be earning program income during the life of the grant, you need to report that to us. And please also indicate the source of the program income. So now we've moved on to the the third page of the SF424A, which is actually labeled page 2, just to be confusing. So this section here, this is now section C. Section B looked at federal and non-federal share. Section C only focuses on your non-federal share. So what we're looking for here on row 8 is your match that you are providing if you're required to provide match to your HPF grant. States can use either column B, applicant, or column C, state. Doesn't really matter to us which one you use. But just make sure that on row 9, you are listing your matching share provided to CLGs. So again, in section C, we look at row 9, column D to see the non-federal share pass through to CLGs. And we subtract that from the total in section B to ensure that you're passing through at least 10% of your grant to CLGs. If you are doing construction, also referred to in the grant manual as development work, this is just a reminder again that there are 2 additional things that you need to submit. As Megan mentioned before, the SF424B are the construction assurances, and we ask that you please complete those. And the SF424C is the construction budget. And that is where you will be telling us in a little bit more detail about the construction costs that are associated with your planned activities. The total on the SF424C gets represented in section B of the SF424A on the construction line. So there is a relationship between those 2 documents. Megan has previously spoken about the NHL and NEPA requirements. Just a reminder that for the National Historic Landmark projects, these are all projects concerning an NHL, regardless of whether or not they are development. 2 more reminders to you, either for in-house activities that involve construction or subgrants or contracts. We strongly encourage you to consider or review subgrantees or contractors' insurance to make sure that the federal interest is adequately protected, and to review the bonding requirements in 2 CFR 200.326. You'll note that construction projects exceeding the simplified acquisition threshold require bonding. Currently, the simplified acquisition threshold is $250,000. Some additional attachments to your submission in grants.gov include the organization chart. The organizational chart needs to show basically who works in your office and clearly identify any vacancies. We also want to make sure that we are able to understand additional information about the composition of your office. So if you could please provide a list or somehow indicate who in your office meets 36 CFR professional qualifications for the required disciplines for your office. For most SHPOs, this is historian, architectural historian, and archaeologist. Please also remember to identify staff that are funded in full or partially with HPF or matching share and the percentages of their funding. If you could also indicate, please, the number of FTEs or full-time equivalent positions that are charged to the federal share and matching share, as well as the lead staff person for each program area. Many states forget to list the lead for administration, so I will just call that one out specifically, but each program area needs to be assigned to a staff person. Also, please identify your HPF grant manager, the CLG coordinator, and the Title VI/Section 504 coordinator. That position may or may not actually be in your office. For some SHPOs, that is housed in a human resources office or maybe in a separate administrative division. In addition to the organizational chart, we also ask for an annual submission by the SHPO that they certify qualified staff and review board. This is discussed in detail in the HPF grant manual, but I would recommend that you actually pull a pre-written form from HPF Online under the HPF Forms tab on the left-hand side. print that, sign it, or scan it, or have it digitally signed, and just attach that to your application in grants.gov as another one of the attachments that you include with the attachments form. And with that, we've reached the end of the application.